Bright QT. Every student matters.
Apart from this, there are certain other points that we need to keep in mind, right? So here students, we are going to talk about some of the basic features that are essential for democratic elections, okay? Now here is the first term. The first term is universal adult suffrage. Are you aware of this term, that is universal adult suffrage? Here, if you're not aware of the term, it means that every citizen should be able to vote, right? And every citizen has a vote and each vote has equal value. Now, when we are particularly talking about our country, I previously told you that in our country, a person who is 18 years or above has the right to vote. Now, what does that mean? Despite of the fact that he is a male, she is a female, or rich, or poor, or any other thing. Despite everything, everyone in India 18 years or above has the right to vote. And each vote has one value. Okay? Every person has one vote and each vote has equal value in our country. So this is the meaning of universal adult suffrage. So when we are talking about some of the essential features of elections, this is the first point that you have to keep in mind here. Apart from that, there should be candidates and parties who are allowed to contest elections. Now imagine a situation where you see that there is only a one party system or single party system, and there are no competitors. There are no other political parties who are taking participation in these elections. Now, can you call that a democratic system? Definitely not, students, right? So, if we look at countries like China, so in China, we know that we have single party system, right? So, there is only one party. And also, when we are talking about China, we see that people belonging to these political parties, right? The political parties, they only elect the candidates. Okay, so here only single party system is there. No other political parties can participate or they have the right to win the election and so on. But when we are talking about our country, India, do we have the same scenario? Not. Here in our country, we have so many political parties and therefore we learned here that elections, it lead to political competition. Why? Because various political parties, they are participating in these elections. Okay, students? So, there should be candidates and parties who are allowed to contest elections so that people, they should have a fair choice and they can choose their representatives. They can weigh the pros and cons, like I told you previously, that each and every party, they have certain ideologies. They have they had done certain works when they were in power. So people can definitely look at those things, right? So which party had worked in their, when we are talking about the national problems, the national issues, which party had handled it very correctly. These are some of the points that people can look for and they can elect their representatives. Am I correct here? Definitely. So here second point is important in this sense. Elections should be free and fair. Very important point. What happens when elections, they are not taking place in a fair manner? Do we call it in a democratic government? Can you imagine a situation where fair practices are not involved whenever elections are taking place? Definitely not, students, right? So here when we are talking about the nature of the elections, it should be definitely free and fair. People should have a fair choice of choosing their representatives. Right? They should not be bound that they have to choose this person and they should not be forced to choose any particular party. Yes, we all know that malpractices are happening here in our country whenever elections are taking place at local level. We definitely have certain examples of that. Whenever you will see newspapers or whenever you see it on TV, you will read the news such as where people are forced or they are given money, right, to vote for a particular party. Despite that fact, we see that it has been reduced here in our country, right? So the Election Commission have been quite vigilant about it, and this practice of free and fair election, it is happening in our country. Elections should be also held at regular intervals. Yes, when we are talking about our own country, we know that elections are taking place at regular interval, right? At the year, at an interval of 5 years, we have the general elections taking place in our own country. So this is the next point that I was talking about, that elections to the Lok Sabha and Vidhan Sabhas, they are held every 5 years. Yes, students. Now, when we are talking about the Lok Sabha elections, it means that we are talking about the general election, right? Now, in our country, students, different kinds of elections are held. Elections to the Lok Sabha and Raj Sabha, you have to remember that they are held every 5 years. So, after every 5 years, we see that the Lok Sabha or a Vidhan Sabha, it is dissolved and fresh elections take place, and again the same party can come in power or a different party can come in power. Okay, so when we are talking about Bharatiya Janata Party, since this is the current ruling power here, before this election also we know that they were in power. If we are talking about the phase that is from 2014 to 2019, we know that BJP was in power there. Now in 2019, the general election, when it took place after a gap of 5 years, we saw that again BJP, it came to the power. So it is not necessary that the same party can't rule again and again. Okay, so here you have to keep these points in mind when we are talking particularly of our own country. Remember this, that we are talking about our own country and not any other country. Okay, so in America we have certain different rules. So here in India we do not, we have this criteria that the same party can be elected twice. Okay, and even after that, if they are doing good work for the common people, they are working at ground level, and also people are liking the leaders who are in power. Now, after every 5 years, the Lok Sabha or a Vidhan Sabha is dissolved. When we are talking about Vidhan Sabha, we are referring at state level, the legislative assemblies. Now, elections are held in all the constituencies at the same time, which was known as general election. So here, when we are talking about general election, remember that we are talking about the Lok Sabha elections, the elections that are taking place after regular interval of time, that is 5 years. Right? Particularly here when we are talking about India. Now, elections, they are held in every constituency. Do you remember the term constituency? We just learned about it earlier here, right? So, people living in a specified area, in a specified territory, they have their representatives that they are elected, right? So, from each constituency, we have one member who is being elected. Now, when we are talking about Nagaland specifically, in 16th Lok Sabha, the lone seat, it was won by which nominee here? So, it was won by the nominee of Nagaland People's Front, and the name here is Nephew Rio. As you can see in the image, the only seat, it was won by this nominee of which party? Nagaland People's Front, Nephew Rio. Now, here students, when we are talking about elections, I told you that we will learn about the mechanism as well. We will learn about the process, that how these elections are held. You might be wondering right now that we have learned certain points here, the importance of elections, how it is being held in our country, and also what are certain basic features here in elections, correct or not? But the main point that we need to understand is the process in which the elections are held. So the first step here is the fixing of the number of constituencies. Now, like I told you that we are going to learn about constituency here, right? I already have defined the term constituency. So here, let us again learn this term. There's no harm in learning about it again and again. So we are learning about the whole process in which elections are taking place. So this is an important point that you have to keep in mind here. A constituency is an area based on population from which one representative is sent to Lok Sabha. Lok Sabha, what does that mean? So this is a part here of the lower house of parliament, right? I already have told you, Raj Sabha is the upper house, Lok Sabha is the lower house. So from each state, from each constituency in a state, a member is elected and he is sent to Lok Sabha. He becomes an MP, right? Member of Parliament. So constituency, what is that? It is an area based on the population, okay, Now here when we are talking about Nagaland, so look at the map here students, you will find it in your book as well. The Nagaland assembly map. Can you see the map here? If the map is visible, yes, the map is visible here, right? So when we look at the map of Nagaland, look at the boundary here students. This is the boundary, right? Here this is Manipur, here it is Arunachal Pradesh, here it is Myanmar. So this is the boundary of Nagaland, we have to focus on that. So here we see that we have different constituencies, right? So from each specified area, people living in that area, they are electing their representative, okay? And these representatives, they are being sent to, one representative is sent to Lok Sabha. Okay, so this is how you have to understand. I hope that through the map it is clear that let's say from each if we look at these constituencies here, Longseng, Mon, right, Dimapur, Kohima. So from each constituency there is a leader who is being elected, a member who is being elected or a representative, and he is being sent to Lok Sabha when the elections are taking place. So here the first point, the first step is to fix the number of constituency. Now when we are looking at the map of India, this is the map showing the general elections of 2019. These were, like I told you, 543 constituencies we have, and elections are taking place on same day or different day in different phases. As you will see that the next time when elections are taking place, just keep a note of it. How elections are taking place, what are the processes that are being followed, right? So here you have to keep these points in mind, right? Key elections are taking place on same day or within a few days in different phases. So as you can see here, the election phase for 2019, first phase, second phase in different areas. In different areas we see that in first phase elections taking place in this place, then here in Arunachal Pradesh, then here in Uttarakhand or different areas or so. Okay, and this is an enlarged view of Nagaland assembly map to understand about the constituencies, right? Division of constituencies in your Nagaland in your state here, right? As you can see, Wokha, Kohima, Dimapur and all these other constituencies are there. Okay, now once the constituencies, the numbers have been fixed, what happens next? Now like I told you that here in Lok Sabha we have total number of seats, that is 543, right? 543 members are there in Lok Sabha. Okay, now each seat is occupied by a MP, by an elected representative. And who is this elected representative? The member of parliament. They are known as the member of parliament. Okay, now each member of legislature, they represent one area. This is an important point that you have to keep in mind. So all the members who are the member of parliament here in Lok Sabha, they are representing one area. In Lok Sabha we have total number of 543 constituencies, right? Specified areas from where the representatives are being elected. So these are the whole processes through which the elections, they are taking place in our country. Now our constitution students, it ensures that each constituency has roughly equal population living in it. Okay, here you have to understand this point, that obviously when we are talking about different states in our country, for example we are talking about states such as Uttar Pradesh, comparing it with states such as Goa. When we are comparing it with small states or bigger states like Rajasthan, Gujarat, Madhya Pradesh, we know that the population differs, right, in each and every state. But our constitution, it has ensured that each constituency, right, each specified area, it should roughly have equal population living in it. And based on that, the representatives are being elected. Now, it makes the value of votes of each person the same as that of anyone else. Okay, so here you have to understand this point, that our constitution tried to ensure that people living in each area, based on the population, we have the numbers of the value of vote or the value of votes of each person should be same as that of anyone else from any other state. Now here, for example, in Vidhan Sabha, the state is divided into assembly constituencies. Now here when we are talking about Vidhan Sabha, it means that we are talking about state level. Now in state level, like I showed you the map of Nagaland, like you can understand about your own state. So this is the assembly map of Nagaland. Now what are the points here that you have to understand? Now representative here is known as MLA. When we are talking about the Vidhan Sabha at state level, we are talking about the member of legislative assemblies. We are talking about the elected representatives who are known as the members of legislative assembly. Here, comparing about the seats of all the states in our country, we have Uttar Pradesh that has the largest Vidhan Sabha here, and it comprises of almost 403 members. But when we are talking about other states, smaller states, Goa, it has only 40 members, and when we are talking about Sikkim, it only has 32 members. So here when we are talking about the Lok Sabha elections here, or when we are talking about the Vidhan Sabha elections, do not get confused here. Lok Sabha, it means that we are talking at national level. When we are talking about Vidhan Sabha, it means that we are talking about the assembly elections taking place at the state level here. Okay. So the same system, it applies to the Vidhan Sabha constituencies as well, because the state is also divided into assembly constituencies. And here another point that you have to keep in mind is that when we are talking about the assembly constituencies, taking the example of Nagaland again, it is also divided on based on the population of that particular state. So these are some of the points that you have to understand here in our first topic, that is elections. The importance of elections, the basic essential features in elections, the whole process or how elections take place in our country, or how elections are held in our country. We also took the example of Nagaland here to have a better understanding of this topic here. Okay. So this was all about what you have to learn in our first topic, elections. In our next topic, we will talk about the reserved constituencies. Thank you very much.